All right. Hi, guys. So, I have a few announcements, like things that I need to go over before we get into the review of the chapter before your quiz goes up. The first thing is, yes, your quiz goes up right when this is over. And I don't think this will be as long as the last one because I don't think people will have as many questions as they did on the last one, but anything's possible. So if you, like I said, if you have questions about the content, like save that for in a minute and let me say a few things here. First, I want to talk about the AP exam updates. Has everybody been getting my messages about how College Board has decided to adjust the exam? Essentially, what they've said is that the exam's now going to be offered online and only online, I'm pretty sure. It is going to be 45 minutes long. And it will be completely free response. There will be no multiple choice options on the exam at all. It will just be free response. And it will only cover periods 1 through 7. So we're in the clear as far as content goes. We've already gone over all of the content stuff that's going to be on, which is really good. I think the reason why they're doing that is because they expect for around this point for there to be, like most people have to have done up through period 7. Amber, yes, it is the same for AP Lang. It will also be adjusted. I don't know what the adjustments are for AP Lang. You can find that on College Board on their website. They've posted it, but I'm pretty sure that just about every AP exam College Board's offering has done away with the multiple choice. So it probably is like APUSH, just free response. Now, since it's free response and only 45 minutes long, that leads us to a lot of questions as to like, what does that look like? They haven't said yet what the exact free response format is going to be. A lot of people have been speculating. We know it won't be a DBQ because it takes an hour to write a DBQ, and there's only 45 minutes here. Can we opt to not take the test for? Can we opt to not take out? Oh, no, you can't. I wish. I don't like AP classroom online questions. I know. And a lot of you have been complaining, like, it's so much harder to write a free response online. Well, good thing we were practicing how to write a free response online this whole time, because now that's exactly what the AP exam is going to be, is a free response online. That being said, it is going to be open note, open book, because they know that since it's online, they can't control what you're doing in your home. Like if you have your textbook in your lap or your, you have your notes out, but your test for period 8 and 9. Can I opt to not take the test for period 8? You mean like, can you take my test? I'm still going to put multiple choice on my tests. Yeah, Amber, you're right. It could be 3 SAQs. It could be LEQ. For the most part, what I've seen people guessing online is that it's either going to be an option of like 3 LEQs, which I don't think it's going to be that, because that would be 40 minutes. Why would they say 45 minutes if it's like, were they going to do 5 multiple choice? They've already said they're not going to do multiple choice. I think it's going to be SAQs, and I think it's going to be the regular SAQ portion is 35 minutes long. I think it's going to be more than 3 SAQs. That's what I think. I think it's going to be more than 3. And I think we might end up seeing an entirely new writing format come out of this. I hope not. I think that I'm sure they'll do, my guess is what they would do is 2 primary source ones, 1 secondary source one, and 1 regular one. Because adding an extra primary source one sort of like takes place of the DBQ that they're now missing. I know it's not great, but you guys have written a lot of SAQs, and we're going to keep writing SAQs. So until I know what it's actually going to look like, and they said they would announce that on April the 3rd, until I know what it's actually going to look like, I'm not going to assign an LEQ, because if we don't end up having an LEQ, why keep practicing writing these long essays if we don't need to? Because it's very possible that you're going to have to write a longer essay for your AP laying exam. So I'm sure you're going to be practicing writing long stuff for that. So yes, you're officially done writing DBQs, which I'm sure is a relief to a lot of you. I know they're like the least fun writing part of all of the AP history. So no more DBQs, which is nice. I'm happy I don't have to grade any more DBQs, at least for now. But does that answer everyone's questions? Like I said, April 3rd for the rest of those updates. Until then, I don't know. Like I said, what I anticipate, if I was to place bets, it would be 4 SAQ questions, but I don't know yet. But if anyone, they'll say DBQs weren't that bad. I think most of the class would disagree, like Allie is. But does anyone have any other questions about the AP exam changes? Does this test still start at the same time? Yeah, it'll probably still start at 8 a.m. on May 8th. The test date itself will probably be different because now they're offering 2 test dates, but I don't think it's up to you. Like when you take your test, I'm pretty sure it's up to the school or your county has to decide on your test date. I'm pretty sure you don't just get to be like, well, I want to take it on this day. I don't think that's an option. I think it's up to the school or your county. I barely know how to write an SAQ. Shut up. You know how to write an SAQ. You do know how to write an essay. You've done it a million times. Your last one was good. You'll get some SAQ practice in today. You're going to write one more in just a minute. You should put in that we all take it at 10. Why? So that you can sleep in? That's stupid. No. They're not going to ask me for my recommendations anyway. They're just going to tell us what's going on. The only people who they're asking are AP coordinators and people who have been AP readers for 20 years. I will say the SAQ that you have on your quiz today is a primary source reading. It's got a quote to go off of. Okay. So that takes care of AP exam updates. School closure reminders. If you didn't see my remind yesterday, is it still 27 minutes? Oh, the quiz. I was like, is the AP exam 27 minutes? The quiz. It's, I don't know, whatever, the 12 minutes for the SAQ plus 1 minute for however many. I think it might be 29 minutes. I don't remember off the top of my head how long the quiz is. But I'm pretty sure I put it in the description. So before you be a little more positive, Zaria, before you click that you want to start it, I put in the description how many questions it is and how much time you have, and you only have 1 attempt. So school closure reminders. If you didn't see on the news that Guilford County starting tomorrow at 5 o'clock is under a safe at home or a stay at home, which is essentially that they're continuing to close more and more non-essential businesses. So this doesn't mean that no one's going to be able to go to the grocery store and stuff. Your parents are still going to be able to feed you. It's just that there's going to be pretty much they're trying to put the kibosh and completely limit any type of non-essential travel. So because of that, previously all the school buildings have been open from 10 to 2 to the public. So I know several people have stopped by the school to pick up their notebook or get a laptop or something if they needed one at home. That's going to end tomorrow. So if you need a laptop, if you've been trying to do your work on your phone, please don't do that. It's going to be really hard to keep doing that, especially for the rest of the semester. And we don't know how long this safe at home thing is going to last. And after tomorrow, the school buildings are going to be closed to the public. And so if you need a computer or anything at school, you have got to go today or tomorrow between 10 and 2. Obviously, you're not going today at 10 because it's 10 now. But if you do go to the school, make sure that you call first because you got to tell Miss Marshall that you're coming. And then when you get there, you'll have to call her again because the doors are all locked and someone has to come let you in. So if you don't have the school number, it's on the website, or, I guess if you're feeling super lazy, you could text me, but I think most people have the school number. So like I said, please, if you don't have a computer, please go get a computer. Did you hear that some states had already stopped the school year and just passed the student on to the next grade? Yeah, that's not necessarily real. Some of them have stopped school, but they have not necessarily passed the kids onto the next grade. A lot of them are in this sort of limbo area where they're trying to figure out what they want to do. As far as IDs go, let's pause on IDs right now. Don't do any more IDs. If you've already done some, I'm willing to bet 99% of you haven't done a single one. And maybe I'll because now I can't do like a drop off. I don't know. I'll think about IDs, but pause on those. Don't worry about those right now. Ross Bryan said that Maryland aren't doing any. Yeah, they're not doing online schooling, but that doesn't mean that they're just like saying, welcome to the next grade. They don't know what they're doing yet. The Department of Education at the federal level has to decide if they're allowed to do that. If you've already done most of them, maybe I'll take them as extra credit, but I don't know how I'll get them. Maybe I'll have you take a video of them, upload a video, not pictures. That would be too many pictures. They'll be going the week after the 4th. That sucks. Okay, yeah, see, exactly. Yeah, they're not just passing people on. They're going to have school in July, and that truly blows, and not something that we want anything to do with. I would still like as much summer as, the planet can possibly give me when this is over. That sounds absolutely atrocious. I want nothing to do with that. So, yeah, like I said, please, if you don't have a computer, get a computer. Yeah, I don't think we're going to have to make up any time. But we don't know anything for sure. College classes. All your college classes are on Moodle. Make sure that you are keeping up with your college classes. If you are unsure of, what if you like looked at your Moodle. I know some professors are like being kind of sucky with Moodle right now. If you've looked at your Moodle and you can't really see anything, email Ms. Horton and double check that like it's not something on your end and that you're not missing something. And please communicate with your professor as much as possible. If you need help or if you're struggling with any of your online stuff, feel free to reach out to us or to Ms. Horton or anybody. College Board live streams. If you didn't see, no, we're probably not going to do the pass fail thing. That's really wait, Maddie, do you mean the college pass fail thing, or do you mean high school pass fail? Because we won't do a pass fail for high school. Do you mean college pass fail? Sorry, there's a delay on the chat. So what you're seeing, I've already said a few seconds ago. College. No, I haven't heard anything about that, but I'm sure that the college will email your college email when they've made any decisions about that, unless they already have, and maybe you already know. I don't know. If they do pass fail, the way that UNCG, was it UNCG? Or maybe it was Chapel Hill. The way that one of them was doing for the middle college to let us do it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's any different for you guys. Those are all Miss Horton questions. I don't know jack about college stuff. But the way that Chapel Hill was doing it was like you can stay with your class normally, and then after you make the grade, then you can decide if you want to convert it to pass fail later. Which is honestly, if I was you, that's what I would do. Because if you pass fail doesn't affect your GPA. But for some of you who are in like 2 AP classes and 2 college classes, like if you make all A's at the end of the semester, your GPA is going to love it. And that's really what you want, because that'll be a 5.0 weight on your weighted GPA for 4 different classes. So if you can get an A in your college class, do not take the pass fail option, because it's not going to help your GPA when it could be. Now that being said, if you're probably going to make like a D in your college class, definitely take the pass fail option, because you don't want that on your GPA, but you'll still get the credit for the class, which is a bonus. Okay, like I was saying, College Board live streams. College Board, I sent out the thing that they're doing live streams every day at the same time. The APUSH live stream is every day at 11 o'clock. I definitely recommend that you look at it. They're going over period 8, which is what we're doing right now. So it could definitely help you study for your quiz, study for your test at the end of the period. It might be nice to hear somebody drone on about social studies. That's not me. They've got, I saw yesterday on the stream, they were doing like primary source examples. She was talking about contextualization. There's a bunch of different stuff. They're doing it on the College Board accounts, like YouTube page, which I sent in the remind. So if you just scroll back up through your remind messages and it's in there. I know Allie said she preferred mine, but it still might be, I definitely think it'd be beneficial to just get as much information as you possibly can. On top of that, the people who are doing it are people who have been AP readers before. I haven't been an AP reader. So somebody giving you information that they know College Board is going to like be expecting can definitely be helpful. And I know like the one yesterday, for some of you who are having trouble with contextualization, watch that one because she was doing a lot of contextualization at the stuff at the beginning. They should have you do the live streams. Thank you. But they didn't ask me if I wanted to do the live streams. And in all honesty, I probably would have said no unless they were willing to pay me. I'm not trying to get on YouTube Live for 6,000 people, which is how many people were watching yesterday. But they do stay uploaded. So if for some reason you miss it at 11, if you have like I don't know, a conference with a teacher or something at 11 or and you can't watch it, then you can always go back. The one from yesterday, I haven't looked, but it should be up there. College Board keeps saying that they're all going to stay up there. Google Doc work. Please remember that if you, I've had a couple people do this in all three of my classes. If I uploaded a Google Doc version, I only did it if there's a chart, because if it's not a chart on the assignment that I've given you, if there's no like graphic organizer looking thing, then you can easily just like copy and paste the questions yourself into a Google Doc and it would be no problem. But if there's like any boxes or charts when you copy and paste to a Google Doc, it looks crazy. So I did it myself and like made a Google Doc. If you're using the Google Doc because you don't have Microsoft Word, do not click on it and start typing immediately and doing work. Make sure, because you have one that I'm going to upload today, make sure that you Control A, select all, copy and paste to your own Google Doc, and then submit me that one. Because then when people go on to make their own copy, they're all of your work, which is a no-go. So what I'm going to do when that happens is I'm just going to delete all of your work, and then you will have to redo it. So don't do that. I had to do that to somebody yesterday. Don't do it. I mean, that's a pretty easy rule. Don't do that. And then homeschool pics. Okay, so last thing before we get into the review. Can you make it so we can only view? I thought about doing that, but I don't know enough about Google Docs to know that if you can only view it, can you still copy and paste it properly? Because I know sometimes on like PDFs you can't copy and paste properly. So I was like, is a Google Doc that you can view only? Is that one that you can not really copy and paste normally? So someone tell me, do you know enough about Google Docs to tell me if it's set to only view, can you still copy and paste the whole thing into your own document? Because I don't know. If that you can make a copy of the file. You can make a copy. Okay. And then you can edit the copy that you make. You can, because you can just copy the whole thing. Okay. All right. Then the one that when this is over, when we're done with this review, when I put your quiz to live, I'm going to just put all the rest of your assignments for today and tomorrow live. When I do that, I will edit the Google Doc link that's in there and I'll change it to view only. So maybe we will, good job, Maddie. Maybe we'll prevent some people from making that same mistake. I'll have to do the same for my other classes. Okay. So last thing, like I said, homeschool pics. If you take a picture of yourself doing your schoolwork at home, send it to me. I'll start like a thread on the Canvas so you can upload it if you want to, or you can just send it straight to me, because I would like to be able to use some of them on maybe like the school's Instagram page, or maybe next year in the yearbook, where normally at the beginning of the yearbook, we have like a thing that says, you know, what we missed between the yearbook print from before and the new yearbook, and definitely missing an entire, quarter worth of school. Yes, extra credit. Our yearbooks, I don't know. They're going to be delivered tentatively right now on May the 2nd. If we're off of the safe at home, then people should be able to come pick them up. We won't be able to mail them to people's houses because we can't afford the shipping. I have no idea what we do. When will we get report cards? You should have already got your report card. I talked to a few people who got their report cards on Tuesday. It was mailed to you. So you should have already gotten your report card. But yes, if you send me a picture or upload one when I make the thread on Canvas, I will make it extra credit. So take a picture of yourself. If you got, you know, like a pet, call them your classmate and get them in the picture with you or whatever, however you want to take it. So like I said, look, Amber, you should have already got your report card. If you haven't gotten your report card by now, maybe call the school. Miss Marshall will be there today. So you should be able to call it and double check if something was wrong with the address. It should have been returned to sender, so she should have gotten it back. So if we maybe have like someone's address wrong, or if you moved, anything like that. All right. Any last questions before we get to the review part, which shouldn't take too long. This is the easy chapter. Okay. All right. I'm going to keep rolling. Can you go over the Suez Crisis? Yes, I'm just going to go in order of how the, I'll do what I did last time and like sort of pick out the things in bold. And then if you have questions as we're going through the things in bold, can we send you the IDs we've already done for extra credit? Wait for me to decide what I want to do about IDs first before you do that. But yes, if I decide that I'm not going to take IDs, then I'll definitely make them optional. So you can just do them for extra credit. I just don't know how I'm going to do them yet. I should have everyone like mail them to my apartment. That would be funny. Okay. So I'll just start at the beginning. 36. This is chapter 36, right? Not 37. Yeah, that's in the next one that you'll start this afternoon. Okay, yeah. Feminine Mystique, Betty Friedan, Beatnik Writer, fan mail. Honestly, yes. Please send me fan mail. Now that I'm basically a social media influencer because I go on YouTube Live every week. Post-war cultures, conformity, television we talked about, nuclear family being reflected in TV shows like Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, all that stuff. Music and pushbacks in the culture. We talked about rock and roll. If you have Hulu, there's a good episode of Drunk History on Alan Freed, the DJ that coined that term, rock and roll. Other beatnik writers. I talked about David Reisman, who wrote The Lonely Crowd, and what beatniks are. Eisenhower becoming elected. So I definitely went through a fair amount of the civil rights movement, these early years of the civil rights movement in this chapter. So for my civil liberties people, that should have been familiar, which is one of the reasons why I think we might not need as much review this time. Plus, a lot of that civil rights stuff you learned in like elementary school or middle school, or at least you were supposed to. So hopefully some of that seemed like somewhat review. So we remember Truman desegregating the military we talked about in the last chapter. In this chapter, it starts with Brown v. Board. The Checkers speech, I mean, literally all that is like his dog's name is Checkers. And like people were like, oh, we love you. Your dog's name is Checkers. I'm not going to ask about the Checkers speech. I personally don't understand why history finds it so relevant. So, and I don't understand why your book even bothered to make it bold. Meh. All right. So as for civil rights movement, Montgomery bus boycott lasted for over a year. The Supreme Court case that ended it was Browder v. Gale. It was a nonviolent movement led by multiple civil rights organizations, all working together, started by the NAACP, protesting the arrest of Rosa Parks that they began to plan after the arrest of Claudette Colvin, who was a 16-year-old in Montgomery. Was the boycott successful? Yes, it was successful. They did desegregate the city buses in Montgomery. And largely it was successful because of it was nonviolent. It was an economic type of battle, and it was like the entire city doing this at once. It wasn't just like a few pockets of people saying we're not going to ride the bus. It was like every single African American in the city of Montgomery was not riding the bus. So it really affected them in terms of money. They were missing a lot of bus fares that they were normally counting on. And then eventually it sort of like spread into downtown businesses. Brown v. Board, 1954. So that case will overturn Plessy v. Ferguson. That case will overturn Plessy v. Ferguson and say that separate is not equal, and it will order the desegregation of all public schools in the United States with all deliberate speed. And that's going to be the first major like national integration policy. Even though the Montgomery bus boycott comes before Brown v. Board in your book, it was not before it in terms of time. Brown v. Board was in 1954. Montgomery wasn't until 1955. So don't get those mixed up in your head. Brown v. Board was like that first major step in terms of launching this new wave of progress in the movement. After Brown v. Board, we talked about the Little Rock Nine in Central High School, which is really important because of the power struggle between the state and federal governments. That's really the overall. There were multiple, instances of violence erupting when schools integrated. That's not necessarily what makes the Little Rock Nine important in terms of like historic relevance. What makes it important is the refusal to cooperate from the governor of Arkansas, and then the enforcement of it on Eisenhower's end, and him making sure. I watched the Little Rock Nine Drunk History. That is a good one. There's also one on Claudette Colvin and the Montgomery bus boycott. There's several. Maybe I'll make like a for people who have Hulu, or feel like sharing your Hulu password with a classmate. For people who have Hulu, I can maybe make like a list of the drunk histories that I would have showed in class. Maybe I can like put those on a Google Doc and like share the Google Doc link. And I can update it as we go, and so you can watch them because those are still fun. I'm sad that I don't get to show those, and there are movies I was going to show in class that I don't get to show now. It's just truly tragic. All right, yes, I will do that with the drunk history episodes. So like I said, it's really important because it's Eisenhower saying, I'm going to enforce the law, and the state government saying like, well, you're being a tyrant, blah, 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 blah. So Eisenhower showing not necessarily that he was like gung-ho for the civil rights movement, but that he was at least going to support it enough to, I can send you a list of movies too. Can I just send you a list of movies? Do I need to say what streaming service they're offered on? Or can I just send you a list of movies? Because I have a list of movies already. I just don't have it written down like what streaming service they might be on. That's super annoying. I don't have time to look all that up. And plus, it's like a constant rotation. Like you think it's on Netflix one day, it's off Netflix the next day. Both. No, I'm not going to do that. Just send the list. All right. Yeah. I'll just send the list. I'll upload that too. I already have that. And then I'll make a drunk history list. Is there a movie on the Little Rock Nine? Not that I know of, which is a shame because it would be a very interesting movie. But I haven't heard of or seen a movie just on the Little Rock Nine. There is one on the Montgomery bus boycott with Whoopi Goldberg and Sissy Spacek that's really good, called Long Walk Home. Sorry, I guess. Shut up. I think my dog hears somebody in the hallway and he's super freaked. But I think it's called Long Walk Home or something like that. If you just like look up like Montgomery bus boycott Whoopi Goldberg movie, it'll pop up. All right, enough about movies. Eisenhower proves that he'll support the civil rights movement in terms of he'll actually enforce the law, which is an important thing there. Kennedy, we know, will take it even further. Greensboro 4, you should know a whole lot about by living in Greensboro, so I shouldn't need to go over the Greensboro 4, but you should know that it sparked the sit-in movement wave, which became like a trend among the civil rights movement, was to practice sit-ins, which will inspire the founding of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. As for Eisenhower's domestic policy, you should know Operation Wetback, which was the program where they started essentially restricting immigration as much as possible, and cracking down on undocumented immigrants because they didn't want it to hurt the Bracero program, which they were still doing, still bringing people in legally to use for farm labor. They didn't want anybody coming in undocumented to use to take away that for farm labor. Federal Highway Act, which is the Eisenhower interstate system, which we know, you could say comes from the popularity of the automobile, but you could also say it comes from the Cold War, because of the military mobilization aspect. You should definitely know Eisenhower's Secretary of State, John Foster Dulles, and their policy issues, whether it be brinkmanship, how they practice containment, whether it be brinkmanship or the policy of boldness, which is basically brinkmanship, massive retaliation, all of those things. And then we got our new Soviet leader in this chapter, Nikita Khrushchev, who we know is not quite as intense as Stalin, but definitely still intense. And we learned that during the Hungarian uprising, where he gave leeway to the Polish workers when they rebelled. And then shortly after, he cracked down and crushed the Hungarian uprising by killing a bunch of people. Stop growling. All right. So Suez Crisis. Now I will get for the Suez Crisis. Would you like I know that was a whole confusing thing. Would you like for me to just re-say the entire Suez Crisis again, or do we have just specific questions about the Suez? Yes, say the whole thing. Okay. All right, I will say the whole thing. So this is in Egypt, right? The president of Egypt, his name is Nasser, or his last name, and he wanted to build a dam in the Nile River. For obvious reasons, there's a lot of benefits to dams. So, basically to get someone to build the dam or to help him financially with dam construction, he was like, hey, who wants to help me do this? And obviously the United States wants to, us in Great Britain want to be the ones to help. We don't want the Soviet Union helping anyone with anything, because what we don't want is them to create more allies. We don't want them to expand their economic reach. We don't want them to increase their presence in any new territory, because this is all about containment, right? So we want to contain the Soviets over there. And if somebody needs help building a canal, we want to be the ones to do it, because we want to be spreading our power and influence, not the Soviet Union. So ultimately we make an offer. Hey, we'll build it for this much. Here's how much financial assistance we can provide you at this interest rate, blah, 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 blah. And Nasser basically says, cool, and then goes behind our back and takes that offer to the Soviet Union. And it's like, here's how much they're willing to give me. Are you willing to give me more? Are you willing to give me at a lower interest rate? Trying to sort of pit us and the Soviet Union against each other, which makes sense that you would want to do that if you were Nasser, because you're trying to get the best deal for your people and for your government. And these two huge global powers are fighting with each other and bickering. Why not use that to your advantage? But as far as our perspective, that just really pissed us off, and that made us feel like, well, I'm not going to build your dam anyway if that's how you're going to treat us. We made you a good offer. Either take the offer or don't take the offer, but don't use it to try to coax a better offer out of somebody else, especially the country that we feel the most weary about. So after we pull or rescind our offer, Nasser's now angry. So he nationalizes the Suez Canal and the surrounding areas, which is bad because we use the Suez Canal. The British, the French use it. It had previously been under French control before he nationalizes it. If you don't remember what nationalizing something is, it means you're putting it under government control. So it's no longer under private ownership. So when we nationalized, power and water, we're not necessarily putting it under government ownership, but we're putting it under government control, or something like that. So how when you pay for power, or not pay for power, but when you pay for water, you're paying the city. If you have city water, you pay the government. You don't pay a private, company that provides the water to your house. So that's essentially what the canal is going to do. And that way Nasser could stop whoever from using it, with us, Great Britain, France, whoever. He could make sure that we didn't have access to it, which is bad because we used it to have access to all in the Middle East. If you don't remember your, world geography, Egypt is in Africa, but we consider it sort of Middle Eastern because it is largely, have a large Arabic presence. And anyway, so when they do that, instead of saying, hey, team, get together. What do we want to do about getting our access to the canal back? The Great Britain and France just sort of go off on their own, and they're like, we've got a plan. Let's go through with our plan. When you said all the all in the notes, I had to go back and be like, what? Oh, because I said all. Get over it. Y'all should know how I say all at this point. You should know the I is silent for proper pronunciation. So they go and talk to Israel, which is basically our one and only like strong ally in the Middle East. And like I said, Egypt and Israel, not pals, Moses and Ramses, they don't get along. And they have their own disputed territory. And so Egypt and or not Egypt, but Great Britain and France basically tell Egypt, no, God, they basically tell Israel, invade Egypt, take back the Suez Canal for us. Take whatever you want, realistically. Occupy whatever disputed land that you think belongs to you. And if Egypt tries to come back and fight you, then we'll help. France will help, and the United States will get involved as well. So Israel invades Egypt. They're stoked for this. They've been looking for a reason. I'm sure Egypt's been looking for a reason to invade Israel. They've been looking for a reason to start fighting with each other. And now we've basically given them the green light, and we're on the hook for it, even though we didn't actually come up with this plan or approve this at all. Like, no one mentioned to Eisenhower, like, hey, we're going to convince we're going to convince Israel to invade Egypt, and then we expect you to back them up. Like, no one said anything like that. And now all of a sudden a potential war is brewing in Africa, and we're supposed to be like ready to roll with troops on the front lines. So when that all went down, Eisenhower was like, no, that you don't get to sign the U.S. Army up for something without actually asking us. That's not how this works. So he refused. He was like, y'all are on your own. Y'all made this mess. That's entirely on you, and you're going to have to deal with these consequences. So they ended up having to pull the Israelis out. Great Britain and France had to back down. The whole thing ended up not erupting in war, but it definitely could have, and it could have gone really badly for our allies. And we were feeling super distrustful of those allies for quite some time now, because we feel like they're just like gonna exploit our military power and presence now. We're like, no one has our back. It'd be your own people sometimes. So, and on top of that, now these countries in the Middle East, especially the ones who we're constantly doing business with, whether it be we use your canal or we purchase oil from you, they're feeling super distrustful now. And it looks like the fight and the power struggle between us and the Soviet Union is starting to bleed into our relationship with other countries. So these other major petroleum producing countries, the top 5, Iraq, Iran, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait, will all come together and form OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. And we will have a tense relationship with Great Britain and France for the next couple of years. Questions on Suez before I keep rolling? Or are we clear on that now? I hope that made sense, as much sense as it did in the notes. Is there anything about Indochina? No, there's not. Okay, I'll take it as that is it for the Suez. The kitchen debate was essentially, I didn't really talk about that in the notes. I'm not going to ask about it on the quiz. And it's official that they won't be asking about it on what's the function of OPEC. They basically function as a cohesive unit that it's almost like an oil monopoly. Like, while each country operates differently, they're all working together to control oil prices and the market, which can sometimes be good and sometimes be bad. For example, it's going to be super bad for us in the 1970s because OPEC is going to put an embargo on the United States and a lot of other Western countries where we won't be able to access their supply anymore because of our relationship with Israel. So that's going to be bad, and gas prices are going to go up by 400%. So that's going to be a problem. But it's, like I said, it's essentially like they're all operating like one giant oil monopoly, sort of what OPEC does. So like I said, kitchen debate was pretty much just a debate between Nixon, and where he was like accusing Khrushchev of stuff. I mean, it's one of the things that made Nixon more of a household name while he was vice president for Eisenhower, and it will help him get the nomination for the Republican Party in 1960. But we know he doesn't get elected in 1960. It'll take us another 8 or so years before we'll get to a President Nixon. Whether or not you see that as good or bad is on you. Space race, we will see the launch of the Sputnik 1 and then the Sputnik 2. The 2 is the one that was carrying the dog. And that's when we'll authorize that's when we'll start the space race, essentially. That's when we'll create NASA and we'll pass the National Defense Education Act. Art movements and stuff, I talked about abstract expressionism, Jackson Pollock and his splatter paintings, international style, the architecture that looks very boxy, lots of chrome and steel high rises in New York and Chicago. New Frontier. I'll talk about New Frontier when I get to Kennedy in just a second. Other literature. We talked about the Crucible. I know you guys have finally started reading the Crucible in AP Lang, so you should have plenty of knowledge about the parallels there between life during the Red Scare and the literature of the 1950s and early 60s. So too bad that won't be on the AP exam, or that would be an easy comparison to make. The Southern Renaissance, the rebirth of Southern literature, All the King's Men was an example that I used. Like I said, very good book. But there are a bunch of other ones. That's just one example. So New Frontier, that was what Kennedy basically called that's just the verbiage that he used to talk about his administration embarking on this new frontier. That's what his overall platform and policy was going to be, which was we're going to usher in this new era of the 20th century where we're embracing technology and peacekeeping missions, and we're going to be a positive global leader that embraces social change and things like that. That's essentially what the new frontier is. So the Peace Corps being an example of that, us trying to be this benevolent nation that supports our neighbors and other countries, and Kennedy's support of civil rights, or embracing technology, the space race, and him promising to get us to the moon by 1968 and all of that stuff. As far as Kennedy's foreign policy, the 3 things that you should know are the Second Berlin Crisis, the Bay of Pigs, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. Second Berlin Crisis is when Khrushchev ends up building the wall. The Bay of Pigs is where they tried to I guess they sort of invaded Cuba. We trained all those Cuban exiles to invade Cuba at the Bay of Pigs and to overthrow Castro, but it failed miserably, and all those people got killed, and we looked really dumb. And then the Cuban Missile Crisis, the third one, which was where we found out that the Soviets not only had missiles in Cuba, but potential nuclear missile launching capabilities in Cuba, which would put us in the danger zone in terms of nuclear missile hits. So we had this standoff chicken fight between us and the Soviet Union, who's going to back down first. And ultimately we sort of won that one, because they do end up getting rid of the missiles that they had in Cuba. Originally they wanted us to get rid of our missiles in Turkey, but we wouldn't do that because they weren't necessarily ours. We had loaned them to the UN, who had put them in Turkey. So we were trying to say, that's really not our business. And ultimately we threatened to invade Cuba and forcibly remove all of the missiles and, almost start a war if they don't stop their ships and not send any weapons and remove the ones that they have. So that's when Khrushchev backed down. And so, like I said, 13 days, hottest hot spot. And the closest we'll get to nuclear war with the Soviet Union will be the Cuban Missile Crisis. Very good movie on that. 13 Days. Kevin Costner. Highly recommend. Civil rights, freedom rides, which were organized by CORE to test Kennedy. Will he support the new Supreme Court legislation, Boynton v. Virginia, the integrated interstate buses? And he did. What's the 3? The second Berlin crisis. I said the second Bay of Pigs. There's only one Bay of Pigs. The second Berlin crisis, the Bay of Pigs, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. Those are the three big foreign policy moments for Kennedy in his short term as president. The Birmingham campaign and the SCLC with Bull Connor, where they used like the, fire hoses and police dogs after the Children's March, which inspired Kennedy to not only, send federal troops to restore peace to Birmingham, Alabama, but also write alongside his brother and some congressmen the new Civil Rights Act that eventually Johnson will sign and will end segregation in the United States. The March on Washington, summer of 1963, which was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom to support the new civil rights legislation. Very powerful moment. That's where Dr. King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. And it really showed like the unity of the movement. And even though like all these civil rights groups like didn't always get along, like we know for a fact that the SCLC and SNCC did not always vibe, but everyone managed to like put aside their differences and plan with A. Philip Randolph this like really powerful like festival celebration type of march in Washington, D.C., which showed a lot of support. And then I went through Kennedy's assassination, and realistically, I'm not going to ask you anything about big conspiracy theories, mostly because, this is a government class, and I'm not going to give you my conspiracy theory spiel that I'm sure if any standardized test, which y'all aren't going to have to take now, but if any standardized test was to ask about the Kennedy assassination, I'm sure the answer they would want would be that he was killed by Lee Harvey Oswald. So as long as you remember the, narrative that the government is giving you, then you're pretty much straight there, unless you're super into conspiracy theories and went down the rabbit hole. Like I know several of you did because you started texting me about your theories and stuff. But that's it for the chapter. Any questions on chapter 36? Anything you want me to go back and redo before I end this and we do the quiz? What is my theory? I think it was Johnson. I have a lot of reasons to think that, but I think it was a cohesive effort between the FBI, the CIA, and President Johnson. Kitchen debate, I already mentioned. You don't really need to know it other than it does a lot of things for Nixon's political career overall and will eventually help him get nominated. Zapruder. The Zapruder film, the whole thing makes me so uncomfortable because you can almost see other people recording. And the only reason that we have Ray Charles did not kill Oswald. Nope. I don't know. Everyone just ignore whatever Zaria is talking about. But in the Zapruder film, the only reason we have that film is because that one was not confiscated by the FBI. He kept that one. So that was the only reason why we even have that one. Had the FBI taken that one would have been lost also. So we're lucky that we even have that one. I know the Zapruder film can be hard to watch because you literally see this man get his head blown off. It was someone named Barry, right? No, it was Jack Ruby. Here's a little fun little tidbit. Jack Ruby went to when he went to prison and they started to do, remember I told you about the second investigation they did into Kennedy's, how did they lose them? They didn't lose them. They're lying. But the webcam is definitely, live streaming this straight to the FBI, and they're probably going to be at my door any minute. But when Jack Ruby was in jail and they were doing that second investigation, he wrote a letter to Congress saying, like, I have important information on this and you need me to come there and testify. And they were like, no, we don't need you. He wrote to them 8 times begging to be, Stephen, you're really trying to get us all got now. He wrote to them 8 times trying to get them to bring him to DC, saying like, I really need you to bring me to DC. I don't feel comfortable giving testimony here. I'm not safe, but trust me, the information I have is information you're going to want. They finally agreed to bring him to DC to schedule his testimony so that he can like say whatever he thinks he needs to say. 2 weeks before he's supposed to go to DC, he dies. How does he die? Oh, they said he had cancer. No one knew he had cancer. He didn't know he had cancer. They were like, oh, it turns out he had cancer this whole time, and he died. We just didn't know. So, suspect. We'll never know what Jack Ruby was going to say. My thought is that Lee Harvey Oswald was somehow in on it, and they thought once he got arrested that he would snitch. So the CIA or someone had Jack Ruby kill Lee Harvey Oswald, and Jack Ruby probably would have said something along those lines to the Congress and erupted in a whole lot of problems. He tried to, yep. So Bush could be president. We're a long way from Bush. Chill out, Stephen. All right. Any final questions about the chapter at all? Why did Johnson want him dead? So that he could be the president. Johnson was a crazy dude. We'll get more into Johnson in the future, but Johnson was wild and very power hungry. So I definitely believe that it was because Johnson wanted to be president himself. And Johnson very much represented, like different aspect of his party, more that was much more like, about power, and one that was a much less idealist. Okay, good. Everybody feels good. I hope everybody feels good about the quiz. Everybody, for the most part, did well in their last quiz. So I guess the review's working. I hope you're staying on top of your work. I've seen pretty much everyone staying on top of their work and getting everything done every day, which I'm very pleased about. For the record, do I think the Warren Commission was actually effective? No, I don't. I believe that your quiz actually closes tonight. So you do have to take the quiz today. Everything else, is due tomorrow, but you do have to take the quiz today. I recommend, while it's all fresh on your mind right now, go ahead and take it as soon as I put it live. And yes, all the civil liberties children's in this class should have all of the knowledge necessary over these next 2 chapters. To do pretty well, at least, just off civil liberty knowledge alone. So good luck while you're taking your quiz. Feel free to text me if you've got questions. I guess I'll let you know whenever the next live stream is going to be. I'll continue to put it in the the module schedule. Adios.